Welcome, Yamhill County, to Speaking Frankly. I'm your host, Howie Harkema, and our tagline is, "And how we doin'?" Today, I have Harry Noah as my guest, who is running for a county commissioner seat to take the place of Casey Kulla, who is running for the state of Oregon Labor Commission. Welcome, Harry, very much. Glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So, what made you decide to run for county commissioner, Harry?
Well, the politics in Yamhill County are in the state of turmoil a bit right now. And I'm going to hit this thing right there. And it concerns me. There's a lot of yelling and screaming going on, and I don't think that's helping Yamhill County. And so I decided to raise my hand and say, maybe there's a better way we can do some of this stuff. And that's my reason.
That's a great reason, though. So, what is the background that you have that has prepared you for this office? I know you have a really extreme background from Alaska. So,
Well, my folks moved to Eugene in 1971. I went to school at Humboldt State and have a bachelor's degree in natural resource management with a kind of a career emphasis on water quality, environmental engineering. I came out of school, went to work for the Coos Curry Council of Governments as a land use planner, and from there got picked up by an engineering firm focusing on water quality issues, and started working on preparing environmental impact statements. I went on from there to start working on some hard rock mining projects, and we bought our first orchard in Yamhill County in 1985, and 30 acres of filberts. And it was pretty hard to make a living on 30 acres of filberts back then, especially on not really great ground. And so I started working on really large mining projects in Alaska. The Greens Creek mine, the Red Dog mine, and because it was early in the environmental regulatory movement, so to speak, there weren't a lot of people with a lot of experience. So by fortune, I just kind of ended up in the management of designing these projects. So teams of 4 or 5 people would be put together to develop a mine, a hard rock mine. And these mines were $500 million, $800 million mines. And when we got there, there was nothing there. And so we had to plan everything, the roads, the mill, how the mine was going to be excavated, where the tailings were going to go, the water supply systems, everything. And I was the person that dealt with the hiring all the environmental scientists and working directly with the mining engineers to integrate the environmental with the hard engineering of a mine, and then dealing with the public and the governmental agencies to move the mine through the regulatory process. So that put me out in front with a lot of things. And I ended up being Commissioner of Natural Resources for the state of Alaska. We in Alaska, at that point, Claire and I were going back and forth between our farm in outside of Newburgh and Alaska. So I got a lot of airline miles out of that. And in 2000, there was a mine, gold had collapsed, and a gold mine had gone bankrupt on state land, and it was called a heap leach mine. And the state was going to have to raise $10 million to reclaim the mine. And they had asked me to see if we could do something about that because they didn't have $10 million and they didn't want to go to the legislature and do that. So we put together a private partnership, and we did what we called a mine to reclaim. We put the property back into operation to raise the money to reclaim it. And that took 7 seasons. And the scale of the mine was, we mined about 17,000 tons a day during the the non-snow months, and it was called a heap leach, and that was called the Illinois Creek Mine, and it was 80 miles from the mouth of the Yukon River, and it was, completely fly in, fly out. Anyways, that was called American Reclamation Group, and that's one of the 3 companies that I developed. And I also developed a company to make maraschino cherries, which still is in existence. And we took over the Blue Diamond Almond Co-op's hazelnut division in Seattle, or in Salem. And we've just recently, in the last 4 months, sold that property. So I've got a lot of governing experience, and not so much in getting elected experience, but lots of governing experience.
But it sounds like you have a strong fiscal background as well.
Yeah, I've had to make payrolls for the last 20 years, 25 years. Yeah, and so that makes you fairly fiscally responsible. So, and actually that's, I don't have any particular arguments how Yamhill County has been spending its money, but I think how you spend public funds is a real responsibility for an elected official.
It is. And it's really important that you do have that background, because what the commission works on is land use a lot and fiscal responsibility.
It is, but I think that the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners needs to kind of come back and pay attention to the basics of Yamhill County business. I mean, it's responsible, as you just said, for discretionary land use decisions. It's responsible for making sure the sheriff has what he or she needs to keep the county safe. There's public health. You got to make sure that the roads get fixed and the bridges don't fall down.
Right.
And you got to do that in a fiscally responsible way. And economic development. That's the job of a Yamhill County Commissioner, I think.
And it's nonpartisan, and it shouldn't go into politics so much.
And by nature, getting elected is obviously political, but the things that the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners deals with are things that we all ought to be generally able to agree on. Whether, making sure you have water that comes to your tap, that's not a partisan issue.
No.
Yeah, and so I think that's what it needs to focus on. And there are a lot of opportunities right now. There's the bill that the Congress and President Biden passed this last fall has a significant amount of money for infrastructure improvement.
Exactly.
It's something that the county really needs to get into the game and go after. We're in a situation where the country has a high debt. We've had a low interest rate, but now that interest rate's going to go up. And this is most likely, the amount of money is a once in a generation type of situation. And you can argue about whether government ought to spend that money or not, but that decision's been made. And we're all going to pay for it. And people's kids and grandkids are going to pay for it. The county ought to take the opportunity to get as much money as it should, or its share of the money, as long as it goes into hard assets, fixing bridges, fixing roads. The city of Yamhill just about ran out of water last summer. It needs to make sure that money, it gets from that pot of money into the hands of say, the city of Yamhill, so they can fix their systems. And, there was an earlier bill that was passed that just allocated money to the county. That's not going to happen this time. This time, everybody's got to hustle after the dollars. They've got to get the projects formed up and be in a position to go after the money. And then they have to watch over that money properly so nobody gets in trouble from a fiscal standpoint.
Exactly. And I know that Yvette Potter, who's the mayor of Yamhill, really had to jump through a lot of hoops to get things moving right away on that water problem.
Well, she's actually seems to me to be in a good job. I mean, she seems to have the heart, a lot of heart for the city of Yamhill, trying to do a good job. But they can't do it by themselves. I think the role the county should be to put together a project team, not grow government, but put together a project team. And with that project team, help, municipalities like the city of Yamhill to get their grants, to help with the engineering. That team can go away when the projects are done. We don't want to blow up county government, but for a period of time with this truly once in a generation amount of money, the county should help the municipalities and itself pick up those dollars and do something with them.
And that's what I thought that a county commissioner does. So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Okay.
So the next thing I have is, and it sounds like you've got a really great background in this, is negotiations, collaboration, and conflict resolution. And because of the enormous amount of work that you've done in the past, would you talk about negotiations, collaboration, and conflict resolution?
I've just kind of lived that. I haven't thought about it in those buckets necessarily. But the way I would think that you approach any issue is fairly straightforward. If somebody comes to the commission and has a proposal, the first thing you do is, if it's a piece of land, you go take a walk around it, take a look and see what's there, and try and form some basic ideas about the positives and negatives. Then you'd ask your county council, what's the legal underpinning? What does the county have to do? What's its discretion? And then the next thing is, you'd find out who might be opposing it, and you go talk to them. You just bring them in, you start that discussion with them. I think collaboration and negotiation, it is as much about bringing people together and just having them sit down and start talking about it. And one of the things I'd like to do, if I could, is, and I've been talking about this federal money, we've got kind of a Hatfields and McCoy thing going on in Yamhill County right now. And but I don't think, fixing a road or putting in a bike path or fixing a water system necessarily has to be a partisan issue. And if we can get people together and start talking about that, maybe that could help towards moving things along here in the county.
So the next thing that I have is talking maybe shortly about COVID and how it's affected our county and what you see as we move forward out of this pandemic.
Well, I think people's anxiety cup is pretty full right now. Yeah, and the COVID thing became a political issue that I don't think should have been a political issue. But I think we have to recognize that people are taking actions that are partly, based on all the concerns they've had over this COVID issue. I'll use the mask as a great example. I hate wearing a mask, but it's a small inconvenience, for kind of considering what other people think. When I was raised to open the door for a woman going into a room. Yeah, and it's just not worth fighting over at this point. It's a small inconvenience, and we can live with it as far as I'm concerned. I hope I've answered your question.
No, that's perfectly good. How about affordable housing and homelessness in Yamhill County?
That is a big question. And I think in terms of homelessness, I don't that's a big bucket because it's mental health, it's drugs, it's true homelessness, where there's not enough uh, uh, residences for people to be in. And I think we got to be careful to lump all those together because there needs to be different solutions for each of those. Again, I think the county ought to take a much stronger role in dealing with this homeless issue. But you've got to break it down into its components. There are people that have mental health problems that simply need treatment. I mean, it's not a matter of, it's just a matter of they simply need treatment. And I can't sit here today and say, I've got the answer and let's go this way. But I think if the county were to draw together with the cities and start talking about that class of people to start with, and to see how the state, actually going back to the state and say, we've got to get these folks into treatment and off the street. So that's one segment to consider. The issue of drugs and that type of thing, that is obviously a very difficult issue to deal with, but YCAP seems to be doing things. There's a Union Gospel Mission that's doing things. The county needs to see how it can support those groups, resolving that problem. And it's going to be a marathon. I mean, you're not going to have some way to just solve it in a day type thing. In terms of homelessness, just because there's not enough residences, it's a land issue. We're going to have to make some more land available for building lower income homes. And I don't mean that's just for our workforce, for a lot of other things. That's just something that we have to look at. And the city of McMinnville and the city of Newburgh have had a lot of trouble expanding their urban growth boundaries. Right. And we're in a difficult situation where Senate Bill 100, which was the original part of this Oregon land use plan, really was put together to protect farmland in the Willamette Valley. And in Yamhill County, that's what we got. We've got all these cities butted up against this farmland. And we need to recognize both. So I think there needs to be a discussion between, the county commission, the Friends of Yamhill County, these different groups, and say, we can't just stay locked at our bunkers here. We need to find a way to deal with this, and we've got to get some additional land to allow the housing stock to expand.
Yeah, every city's mandated to grow over time. Casey Kulla has done a great job as county commissioner in bringing people together across Yamhill County and beyond to assist in this homelessness issue in the almost 4 years that he's been in office.
I would agree with you. I've just up until I started this race, I've just been a resident. And what Casey's done is pretty quiet. It's behind the scenes, and it doesn't seem like he's been going out trying to get a lot of praise for it. But every place I go asking questions about, in this city or in that with that group, he's been there for years, trying to pull pieces together and solve issues. And he should be complimented for it. But more than that, I don't think anybody knows about it. I mean, except for the people he's dealing with, and that's probably the way it should be in politics. But it should be noted what he's done around the county, because he's done a lot of good things.
Absolutely. Let's talk about sustainable economic development. Here in Yamhill County, we need to bring in more jobs. We need more companies to come in and work with us. What do you see as far as that goes?
Well, excuse me. First, I agree that we need to do that, but first we need to support the industries that are here now. You know, Yamhill County is a pretty unusual place. It's an agricultural county that it because of that agriculture, part of it's grapes, part of it is just the nature of the area. It's quite attractive. So we have a tourism industry that's building up, and we should support that. And we should acknowledge it and sort of say it's doing good things. And at the same time, we need to support our growers. And I'm one of those guys. I mean, we have cherry orchards. We make maraschino cherries out of our what we take off of our orchard. And I will tell you, you start looking at what are the underpinnings of economic growth, and everybody says we got to have lots of economic growth. And I said, sure, but you've got to have the foundation to be able to do that. And right now, the people aren't there anymore. If you look for millwrights and fabricators and welders and those types of folks, they're not around anymore. And we've taken our kids and we say, we want you to go to college. And that's a good thing. I mean, it was a good thing for me. But everybody isn't going to go to college. It isn't for everyone. So the high schools are doing some things with shop classes and some money's been spent, and they're doing good things. And if they double or triple that, hallelujah, that'd be a good thing. But when those kids come out of school and they aren't going to go to college, and I'd like to see a workforce training program that we could set up, and not necessarily to expand county government again, but a public-private partnership with the growers. I will tell you, every grower in Yamhill County has got broken equipment. I got it. Everybody has it. And it's hard to find someone to fix it. So if we could bring in that grower community and we set up a facility, we hire some old pros that are, towards the end of their careers, they've got hopefully enough patience to put up with kids bouncing off the wall, and start training these kids by bringing this equipment in. They can pay whatever they would normally pay for it, and the kids would get paid. But at the end of a year or 14 months, those farms can start plucking those kids out, or the processing facilities or whatever. And I think that would be good for everyone. And if we're going to look at economic development, you got to be careful. Everybody wants to look at this big picture, but you got to create a foundation for that economic development to grow. And you don't want to leave existing businesses behind for new, when heck, you got a good foundation now. Enhance it.
I agree with you. With the outsourcing of most of our manufacturing in the United States over the last 20 years, the apprenticeship programs for welding, machining, et cetera, have gone by the wayside. And some of these kids that are graduating from high school are looking for something that they would feel good about doing for the rest of their lives. And it would bring back some of that manufacturing ability before all of the, like you said, the people who are getting ready to retire from those types of scenarios go away, and we don't have anyone to teach it.
Yeah. Well, I've got a manufacturing plant. It's right behind me here. You have a maintenance person that's got some skills at this point. They're paying we're paying $25, $26, $27 an hour. That's not so bad to get started in your career. So there's a need, for the kids have a need, the growers have a need, the businesses have a need. Seems like something we ought to fill right now. And I'd like to see the county do things like that, where it doesn't grow government, it doesn't go out and tax everybody and pull in the money, but it facilitates this growth and puts these public-private partnerships together, and then, helps it along, but it doesn't have to do it, if you understand what I mean.
Right, I totally understand. Let's move on to communities and schools. How do you think that you can affect change in the situation of that?
I'm not sure that that's, in terms of schools, that's the job of a Yamhill County Commissioner. There's school boards, there's schools. I kind of laid out the kind of thing that I think we ought to do for our kids coming out of school and that type of thing. But the things I think I can do for communities is, I understand projects. Somebody wants to put in a water system, I get that, okay? So I can help with that. In terms of, school board politics and all that, I don't think that's the role of a county commissioner.
Very good. Let's talk about upcoming meet and greets, if you have any scheduled, and where and when, and do you hope to debate the person running against you?
I'd like to debate Kit, so there's nothing scheduled, but that'd be great. And if that opportunity presented itself, I've just been at this running for about a month now, and there's some good people that are helping me get this campaign organized. But all I'm doing now is just going out and talking to people wherever I can. And actually, I started knocking on doors last weekend, and that was just interesting. I mean, it was truly interesting, hearing a lot of that. So I don't really have any public forums or anything like that right now, but I hopefully will in the future.
Very good. How about transparency and accountability in government?
Well, actually, the way government works, I think there is a lot of transparency in government. People get angry with it because it seems inefficient, but it's inefficient because to spend money, there's all these checks and balances and that type of thing.
Sure.
So I'm simply not aware of anything in county government right now that I'm out saying, boy, I don't see that they're not doing this. It seems if you're in a government job, you get beat up from both sides, and you just got to understand that. But there are a lot of hardworking folks that really devote themselves to the job. So I really don't have any negative thing to say about it. The only thing you can do as a commissioner or elected official is, somebody asks you a question, do the best you can to answer it.
Sure.
And if you have the information, give it to them. And you should always take the approach that whatever you say could end up on the front page of the newspaper.
Absolutely. Well, we have Kris Bledsoe also with us right now. She, as you know, she's the Yamhill County Treasurer, and doing a great job at it. And she's the one who put me in touch with you, Harry. So I'm going to ask you both this question. How can this community assist in your efforts? And do you need volunteers? I'm going to bring up on the screen your website and your Facebook page right now. And there it is. So if you want to get in touch with Harry, you can get a hold of him through his website or his Facebook page. So Kris, I'm going to go to you for a minute, if you're back there. In running for your treasurer position, you had to do a lot of the steps that Harry's having to do now. What do you think that could assist Harry in this effort?
Okay, coming on. I didn't realize I was going to be on the video. Sorry, Harry. I was just wanted to watch. Now, the challenge for anybody who's running for elected office is engaging the community in assisting the campaign, as we all know. Now, one of the things that we really need right now are people to help volunteer with sign locations, which, you know, there's always kind of sign wars, if you will, in the county. And Harry is going to be getting signs, and he already has volunteers, people to place those signs. But what we need are places to post, particularly the large signs, or for anybody who wants to put a sign in their yard. Harry's campaign would love to assist them to do that. Now, we can't put signs up until 60 days before the election. But we would love to take a list of people who would volunteer to help with that.
And they can get in touch with you guys via Facebook or the website, and make that happen. So will you be handing out signs maybe at the library parking lot for people to pick up or something like that for their yards?
Sure.
Could be. Yeah, we'll just have to see. You know, as I said, all this is kind of new to me. Yeah, and but that's a good idea. So
I would like to clarify my involvement with Harry's campaign, because Harry is a moderate Republican, and I consider myself to be a moderate. However, the main reason that I'm involved and my husband Steve is involved is we're neighbors with Harry. And we've known Harry now for 11 years. And I cannot think of a more honest man with greater integrity than Harry. And he's exactly, and as you just saw, he is willing to speak with everybody about any issue that comes up. And that's honest. That's not just lip service. And so I would be remiss if I didn't help him when I know that the county needs him.
Thank you, Kris, for saying those kind words. And it's really important for people to know the integrity-filled Harry Noah in Yamhill County. We have run out of time, gang. Thank you very much, Harry, for being on. Thank you, Kris, for joining the call. Even though you only got to say a couple things.
I didn't mean to join the call.
Really important. So thank you for helping Harry in that way as well. People can get in touch with you, Harry, again, on your website or your Facebook page. It's Harry Noah for Yamhill County. Thank you very much for being on today. This will start probably airing next week, and I'll be in touch with you, Harry.
thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching today.